There it goes.
The, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna have some notes here,
Okay.
because I might have to put on my glasses from time to time. I didn't choose these are
Yeah.
my grandma glasses, the red ones.
I got my
But
blue
yeah,
book here somewhere, man.
dude,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Crashing Combos. This episode we have Geoff Dardia. I had Geoff Dardia on the podcast before. We got into his story, how he got doing what he's doing, how he's come to this place, and he's just recently retired from the army. Still continues to do things. I ride bikes with him, with the Dirt Therapy Project, as well as a number of other times, just kind of getting together, chatting. We went to UHP together. We've had some very good conversations with very tough subjects, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it back on. And plus, I just enjoy talking to him. He's a good dude, super good human, and is in the same fighting the same fight, but in a different community. But at the end of the day, we're all humans experiencing the same physiological problems or issues, or just reacting to our environment or the stressors of our life brings to us in this life, because it is a difficult life, and we grow from the difficulty and resilience from it if we can have the tools and know how to do that. So, without further ado, I'll just let Geoff kind of give him a quick background, and congrats on your recent retirement. And just so we can give the audience an idea of what you do, and yeah, and then we'll get into the various subjects of what we talked about a little while ago.
Right on, brother. So thank you. Thanks for the kind words. I just retired back in April, 24 years service active duty. My whole life's been here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I never PCSed. I switched parking lots. And the last 10 years of my life have been dedicated to helping the community, giving back, helping people with all the health related issues that go along with the operational environment that we worked in. And it comes down to resilience, like we talked about. And you get to a certain point, you grow up a certain way. The majority of people coming in the military, they came from adversity, and that becomes their new normal, the familiar hell, the familiar chaos. We thrive in it. And then we go in the military after childhood like that, and then everything's provided for us, right? We got clear mission, purpose, focus, identity. Our pay's taken care of, our food's taken care of, our lodging's taken care of. It's everything we were missing at home as kids. If some people didn't get that, it's provided. It provides like a safe place. No one ever thinks the military be a safe place, but honestly, it's for a lot of people, it's what was missing. It was the void. And what happens is after separation, you that's all taken away from you. And if you tie your identity to what you did in the military, you're going to be in a rough spot. And so we condition people in basic training how to turn them from a civilian into a military member. And then we separate, and it's like, hey man, high five, go through TAPS, you're good. Um, it's like there's no detransitioning, there's no deprogramming. And if your entire life is running into chaos and dealing with stress, chronic stress and trauma, when you come out of that environment and you get back to a safe place, it's like Pandora's box, or I call it the Jack in the Box. But you stuffed all that shit you dealt with all your childhood. When you come in the military, for a lot of people, that bucket or that rucksack is already half full. And then you get all the military stuff plopped on top of it. And then your ability to, process and react to stress is highly it's not working the way it's supposed to. You are not functioning the way you normally would. Instead of things bouncing off, they're having more of an effect on you, right? You're not resilient as you used to be. And it's one of those things you don't know it until someone else identifies it with you. You'll be struggling, but usually your family or someone else will notice first, right? And the
Definitely.
definition of resilience is bouncing back. So if you get to a point in your life, psychologically, you're not bouncing back, things are bothering you more than you should, you're overreacting to everything in your environment, you're not responding, your nervous system's fried, right? You're exhausted, and your capacity to deal with new stuff is hampered. And that's usually what we see towards like the 15-year mark in the military. People get to a point where their bucket's full, their rucksack's full, and they're like, man, I have zero capacity to deal with any bullshit. And if you stress inoculate people in my community, when you literally, it's that, the whole fight, flight, freeze, fawn with the sympathetic nervous system, if you override the nervous system to constantly fight, whenever something threatens you or challenges your environment, what do you think you're going to default back to for behavior? You're going to fight everything. So anything that you perceive as a threat in your environment is going to be the hammer, is going to get smashed. And so a lot of people call that PTSD or, conversion disorder or maladaptation. But the bottom line is exhaustion. You just have no capacity to deal with anything new. So going out, coming out of the military, who do you think is going to take the brunt of that? It's going to be your family because you're going to be home way more than you ever were. And unfortunately, that's where we see a lot of divorces. We see a lot of domestic violence, suicidal ideation. A lot of stuff usually happens in like the first 120 days. Marriages end, things happen. So it's how do we get ahead of that? Everything we do in this country is reactionary. Oh, we got 22 a day. Yeah, okay. What's driving it? And then after that, it's like, how do we get people who identify that are going through those things into the right types of programs? And you know as well as I do that everything, even on the civilian side and the VA, is backlogged. So there's a huge wait. Thank God I have my shit together and I know how to navigate the system. But even me, like when I came out in my benefits because I was prior service, I didn't get paid for 5 months. 5 months I didn't get anything.
Mm.
Um, and then when I went to go make my primary care visit for the VA for my first appointment, it was backlogged like 8 months. I got out in April of this past year, and I my next appointment for the VA is in March, so almost a year out to get an appointment with the VA. So TRICARE for life. I don't have to use the VA, but I got to get established. Thank God I've got all my ducks in a row. But yeah, man, like that's it. I've settled in. I work for the foundation full time now. I've been as a volunteer for over a decade, but every day, day-to-day operations is I work with people one-on-one about all the things we just talked about. Psychologically falling apart, marriage is failing. I'm telling you, the bulk of what I do is unresolved childhood trauma. We can talk about that if you want, and how it shapes people, good, bad, or indifferent. It's there. Gen Xer right here. Fuck your feelings type generation
Yeah.
where you never ask for help, you never show weakness, you never express emotions, and you problem solve on your own. Even though I grew up with two parents, but they both worked full time. So I was raised on a skateboard and a bike and a surfboard with older brothers, older siblings, right? And I was out solving my own problems and doing everything on my own from a young kid. I grew up fast, hyper independence. So why do you think people like that do well in the military? Because yeah, you got to figure things out. You got to be independent. You got to be able to problem solve and not have to wait around to be told what to do. So there's a reason we all end up in the same room, and it's one of those things that's never talked about. So well, we can get into that.
Yeah. And um, the list I was talking about earlier, for resilience and preventing suicide, and I mean, it's a very convoluted thing, right? And it's like Pandora's box, right? And that's why a lot of people don't want to open the box. But with that, it's important to start trying to understand it, or at least become aware of it. And you brought up a lot there. And as you were talking, I was kind of looking back, and about my 15-year mark is probably when everything slowed down mission wise. At least for there was a lull, and that's where everything started coming in. And then
Hmm.
on top of that, at that point, I already felt exhausted. So when you brought that up, that like hit home with me. And
Right.
I wasn't. I mean, I was high ops tempo. I was a calm guy. I was always out the door. TDY or deployments.
Hmm.
Um, but it was constantly like fast paced. I didn't have the proper coping mechanisms in place, other than like drinking, and I wasn't sleeping, time zones. Didn't know I had sleep apnea until I got out of the military. So sleep, as we know, is huge. But on top of that, right? You brought up. So I want to get back to the things you did as a kid that kind of sustained you, because I think that's one thing we do now is riding bikes or any type of outdoor activity. But before that, it's childhood, right?
Yeah.
Those are things that we don't factored in, and that those are things that when I was in when I was in therapy or inpatient, I didn't even like open that door because it was like I'm here for military stuff. I'm not here for that, And it wasn't like I
Yeah.
didn't understand then, like I understand now, how huge that is. And if you are carrying all that, like, that weight from their rucksack, as you kind of highlight or used as an example of earlier, and you're not even aware of it, and you're just kind of like bogged down with all this lint of life that you've collected over the years,
Hmm.
and you're just continuing moving forward, continually doing the mission. And I was in my mind, I'm not trying to make it about me, but I think it's important, as you were kind of talking about your story, and you talked about on our last podcast. I think it's huge for, and I don't think it has to be named, but I think it is important, and that's why I started doing this, even though I struggle with it weekly, like not being so public or so
Hmm.
open with it. But I think it's important. I was like, or at least if somebody knows me, they're like, oh damn, like he is talking about some of the things, and I know this person, and they see someone familiar that is talking about it, so they're more likely, hopefully likely, to want to go get help, or you know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
think even as leaders, right? It's important for us to be vulnerable in the right setting to kind of just talk about and let others people know that they're not alone in it.
Yeah.
And they see a familiar face with talking about it, or like just in an open space, and just like, hey man, this is what it was, this is what it is, this is what happened, and this is how I'm dealing with it, or this is how I chose to change. And I continue to still do those things, but I'm and I think it's awesome to find other people like yourself that are kind of just like, as a matter of fact with it, and this is what it was, and this is
Good.
how I chose to uh attack it, or become aware of it, or this is the work I'm still doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, comes down to the first 7 years of your life are the most critical for shaping your nervous system and development, right? Neurodevelopment. And if you grow up in an environment where there's scarcity, uncertainty, fear, unpredictability, like all those things are there, danger, it can be anything from growing up in poverty, growing up with parents who fought all the time, uh, growing up in an abusive household. If you're in an environment where there's no safety present, you're never going to feel safe as an adult. You're going to be living off adrenaline and cortisol. And when that shapes you, where do you think you're going to feel normal? The nervous system always goes to the familiar hell. The unknown is scary. And so, whether it's relationships, jobs, careers, whatever it is, if you grew up in the adrenaline and the cortisol, you're going to find it or create it. That's where the nervous system goes. And until you can identify what your patterns are and why you're doing those things, you're going to be an adrenaline junkie. So, I grew up an adrenaline junkie. I was super aggressive in sports, competitive, just doing everything like near death as a friggin' teenager. I look back at it now, I'm just like, what the fuck was I thinking, right? Like, I can't imagine what everyone else around me was thinking. Thank God I had a couple friends that were in the same boat. We hung out together, but it was one of those things where the second half of your life is figuring out what the first half did to you. And once you are aware of that and you process it, you don't go back to those same behavior patterns. You're like, okay, I know what I was doing when I was doing. And for me, my way to escape suffering was to put myself in dangerous, challenging environments. And physiological pain would make me forget about my psychological pain. So that's why endurance athletes, they all have similar backgrounds than military people, and a lot of them were military, but it's a way to dissociate. And when you're a mountain biker, I'm a mountain biker. When you're going 35 miles an hour down a mountain, you're not thinking about anything else except what's right ahead of you. There's nothing else in the world that matters. And for a lot of people, that's the escape they need, because when they stop doing that, they get on the hamster wheel and that mind's going everywhere, like the ADHD type thing, because that's the type of environment they grew in. They got to be hyper aware, or bad things are going to happen to them, right? That's adaptation. That it doesn't mean you're damaged, broken, have a disease. It means you're responding to things that happen to you. As a society, it's profitable to have diseases. So you name this thing, okay, we got this disease. Now we'll medicate the symptoms, but no one ever tells you what's driving those, right? The root cause of why those things are there. And we're failing as a society to address it. And the biggest thing I work with the majority, the bulk of people I work with are over 40. They're people who have retired. And these people are smart, successful, high IQs, and no means playing victim to anything. But I'm telling you right now, a lot of them are already multiple attempted at suicides, failed on multiple marriages, and can't figure out why they're stuck in these behavior patterns of, self-harm, running themselves in the ground, workaholics. And it goes back to the basics of looking at the nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, we talked about growing up in chaos. When you work off the whole fight, flight, freeze, and fawn thing, or I'll talk about those, what they are. The fight is the one that we programmed in the military to reinforce. We don't fight. We don't run away from gunfire. We run to it. And when you override that nervous system, the brain, the old saying, the neurons that fire together wire together. When you reinforce those pathways to the fuck around, find out pathway, that's where everything makes sense. You function optimally. Your brain is switched on. How many, you're the person out there listening, you're like, man, the only time my brain works is when someone's pissing me off or I'm in a fight or something's going on and then everything clicks. That's because you're conditioned to that. That's your super highway. And when you are operating off the limbic system, the amygdala, prefrontal cortex is shut off. You're not responding, you're not thinking, you're reacting. So whether it's in a relationship, whether it's your job, whether it's in a gunfight, that when that nervous system is primed for responding to threats in the environment, it's going to be really effective and efficient. It's there to keep you alive. And so to get off the hamster wheel, to get the parasympathetic side, that's, if you want to be philosophical, artistic, creative, or any of those things, you can't be in survival mode. You can't be in the limbic system. You have to be using the rest of your brain that's been shut down because of chronic and repetitive trauma. And for a lot of people, they're like, man, I can't read a book. I can't sit still. I'm not artistic. They just, that part of their brain's gone. The creativity part's gone. But they're like, man, you keep me overseas. Everything's rocking and rolling. Put me on a mountain bike doing 30 miles an hour. I'm good to go. But other than that, they're just chasing the adrenaline, the cortisol. It's addictive. And the other one's dopamine. So we can talk about all those. But in survival mode, there's three things that are hardwired into you for behavior: fighting, feeding, and fornicating. Those three things, that's the limbic system. That's hardwired into you for survival, reproduction, right? And when we get stressed, what do you think we do? All things fun. Alcohol, tobacco, fornication, right? All
Yeah.
things fun. Like that's the dopamine. And that's the dopamine is the reward system in your body that says, hey, that felt good. That does good. And pain's the other one. And so pain and pleasure, that's what keeps you alive and keeps you reproducing. And so we live in an instant society where we're getting bombarded by dopamine constantly. Instant gratification, Instagram, right? Everything's Insta. What do you think the people that design these programs to get you hooked on it, they're operating off your neurotransmitters. And for the people out there that aren't familiar with how this shit works, your nervous system, the way you bounce back to everything in your environment psychologically and physiologically, is controlled by hormones and neurotransmitters. So when you're stressed, you're operating off adrenaline, you're operating off cortisol. And when you're relaxing, that's the oxytocin, that's the serotonin. Like those things have to be balanced. But if you're constantly engaged and that brain is constantly responding to things in the environment, whether it's your cell phone, the news, the radio, all this static that's out there, you wonder why people have ADHD. We were never evolved to take on so much information at once and be hyper stimulated and hyper aroused. And so you think people are going to have a hard time deep sleeping and getting restorative sleep? You think they're going to have metabolic issues? 100%. Think they're going to have sexual dysfunction? Yeah, because you're not supposed to be worried about reproducing when you're stressed, right? Like when you're doing the fighting and the flighting and the freezing and the fawning, the whole rest, digest, feed, and breathe thing goes away. So sexual dysfunction is one of the biggest ones that happens, right? Piss off your wife and see what doesn't happen in the bedroom at night. It's that easy, right? Animals don't breed successfully in captivity if they're stressed out. And so it's really super simple. And we overcomplicate it as, you know, being humans. We take simple shit and we overcomplicate it and make money off of it. And it comes down to balance, right? Yin and yang. It's
Yeah.
that simple. Gas pedal, brake pedal, black and white. And if no one ever taught you how to operate this piece of equipment right here, you think it's going to get damaged and be in dysfunction, just like your weapon or your radio or your car. If you don't know how to operate it, maintain it, identify and correct malfunctions, you're not going to be so successful after 20 years in the military or even as a civilian. You're going to break down. And now everything's fast forward. So we're seeing all the diseases, metabolic diseases, go right up through the roof as society speeds up. It feels like we're circling the drain right now. Everything's fast forward. And it's just because we're hyper aroused, hyper stimulated. So it's a lot of information, man, but I'm trying to simplify what a lot of people deal with on a day-to-day basis. But it goes back to an abnormal response to an abnormal situation's normal behavior, right? It's a Viktor Frankl quote, man's search for meaning. But it's that simple. And exhaustion's a real thing. And you'll know you're exhausted when you wake up, feel like you didn't sleep. You need massive amounts of caffeine to get out of bed and get motivated. By 2 or 3 o'clock, you're just like, oh my God, you're starting to head bob, more caffeine. Then about 5 to 7, you go sit on the couch and you fall asleep in like 2 seconds. You'll fall asleep driving home. And then 10, 11 at night, you're laying in bed, eyes open, mind going a million miles an hour. That's called tired but wired, but that's exhaustion. And that just means you're not bouncing back psychologically or physiologically. Psychologically, we get anxiety, racing thoughts, rumination. Physiologically, we get metabolic syndrome. We get cholesterol issues, blood pressure issues, heart disease covers both of those, but insulin resistance, GI issues, all those things are stress related. And it's that simple. And over 90% of doctors' visits are stress related. And if we know this, right, like that's lifestyle and environment, two things. Can't always control the environment, but you can control your lifestyle. And we don't teach people either one of those things. In conventional medicine, it's disease care. It's not health care. We name a disease, then we match a drug to it, and then we send you on your way. And the insurance company dictates the outcome of your life. That's horrible, man. That's not living. That's not freedom. That's dependency, and that's something people need to learn how to do is take ownership of their health and action, make better decisions, understand that everything they put in their bodies fighting disease or fueling it. It's creating resilience or destroying resilience. It's that simple. It's black and white. Like I said before, it's
Yeah.
that simple.
No, and you said a lot there, and I love how you break it down into these I don't want to say layman's terms, but like things that people could relate to
Yeah.
include civilians. Because I mean, you highlighted a lot of things. I mean, I've talked about that before, like the social dilemma that was on Netflix. They kind of broke it down how they hired psychologists to help them with programming these apps and like the casino and I'm aware of all these things, and I still get sucked in the rabbit hole sometimes. The doom scrolling.
Yeah.
But luckily, I had a wife that was like that was smart enough to see what was happening to me and suggesting things from a very basic standpoint that were now looking back on it that led me to where I'm at today. And it wasn't easy, and it a lot of the stuff didn't make sense. But the first thing I was trying to address was my sleep. Granted, I was on pharmaceuticals, I was still drinking, still doing all those things. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm still successful. I'm getting, awards. I'm doing the mission, yada yada, right? So obviously everything's great, but it wasn't. But one of the first things that we did, because I used to tell myself like I can't sleep unless I have the TV on or some type of noise. But one of the things that we did was took the TV out of the bedroom,
Yeah.
right? And then the next thing was like aromatherapy, right? And I didn't really, but I was just like, something's going, I don't know what it is. And so it was like this. So I guess for anybody listening, the reason I'm sharing these things is like, it's a lot of information, but one of the main things that affects most people and causes an array of issues, talking about the check engine light, is sleep. If you don't have your sleep dialed and you are not sleeping through the whole night, then you need to start addressing that first. So it's like taking the TV out of the bedroom. It's adjusting your caffeine, no, like not having caffeine after 12 o'clock. It's these little things that you can start to do, and then over time you'll start to see the results. It's not going to happen overnight. You've been
No.
doing that for 30, 40 years, or however old you are. You can't expect it to change overnight. You have to probably put that much amount of time on top of that and just keep working at it. Nutrition, the dyes and all these things, right? But the one of the I guess I'm saying these things because these are some things that you can do. You can start to address this and get control over your sleep and your life and not depend on a pharmaceutical, right? There's probably going to be a freaking pharmaceutical for like, hey, are you doom scrolling? Are you like stressed out after being on phone? Hey, take this, this will help, blah, 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 right? Because it's unfortunately, most people want a quick fix because that's what we've been conditioned to do is to take something that's going to fix it right now, as opposed to let's take something away like basic troubleshooting, right? When you're trying to figure out a problem, like a car or a comm system or whatever, you got to start taking stuff out, right? To start to get back to the baseline where it's at, let the body regulate or the system, and then you continue to take away until you start to get back to a baseline of where you're comfortable, you're able to sleep, or let's say you're always going to constant threat. You pull yourself out of that environment, and then you have to work on yourself. You can't just stay in that environment and do that. I know it's easier said than done, but I mean, uh, am I what I'm saying, Jeff? Does that make sense?
Yeah, control your controllables.
There you
Um,
go. Look
that's it.
at
Simplified.
that.
It comes down to, you can't fix a problem you don't know you have. And if you grew up a certain way and that's how you've been your whole life, you don't know any different. And,
Exactly.
when you come in the military, they train you how to be a service member. They train you how to operate a radio, train you how to operate a gun. No one trains you how to operate yourself. They don't train you how to manage stress. They don't train you how to fuel, how to recover, how to do sleep hygiene. You're talking about the most important information in the world for the most important piece of equipment you're ever issued. That you can't trade it in and go get a new one. You can't lease it, and we can't grow body parts yet. We'll be there soon, hopefully. But it's like, get back to the basics, man. Sleep is recovery. Your bedroom is your maintenance bay. Yeah, food is information and fuel. And if you eat like shit, you're going to perform and operate and be operating like crap, right? Like it's that simple. And if you don't know how to operate this thing, how to work out, how to recover, then you're guaranteed you're going to have some problems. And it all comes back down to, again, balance. And it's like health is the status of homeostasis or the balance in your life. Wellness is the practice of maintaining health. So where in medical school do they teach wellness? Nowhere. They don't teach anything. They tell you take the pill and you eat whatever you want. Don't worry about your cholesterol. The pill will fix it. That's not health care. That is fucking disease care. It's disease management. So it's literally, get back to the basics. As a kid, the habits you form as a kid, they're going to carry into as an adult, and they're going to transfer to your kids because that's the normal. Whether it's how you communicate with people, types of relationships you have, what's in your refrigerator, your lifestyle habits, that's all going to carry over. And that's why the military is so successful of teaching people like working out, right? Maintaining a standard, having a regimen. Like a routine is the most critical thing for health. What time you go to bed, what time you wake up, when you work out, when you eat, when you sleep, when you recover, when you pray, meditate, whatever. That routine, that's how you increase your heart rate variability and regulate your nervous system is by having a good routine. You got to be consistent, and you don't have to do huge things. It's one like same thing we learned in our course, one variable at a time, right? Let's
Yeah.
focus on sleep. How do we optimize our sleep? I'll go back to that one. Okay, don't eat a huge meal before bed, right? Because what's going to happen if you crank your blood sugar up and then it tanks and destabilizes? You're not going to deep sleep. How about getting away from the blue light 2 hours before bed? Most important ones, get out in the sunlight between 8 and 11 every day, 30 minutes. And then make sure caffeine, like you said, the half-life of caffeine can be 4 to 8 hours, depending on body composition and metabolism. That means if you drink 300 milligrams of caffeine, 4 to 6 hours later, there's still going to be over 100 milligrams of caffeine in you, right? If you're at 400, you're going to be at 200 before bed. Think you're going to deep sleep and get deep restorative sleep? No, right? So it comes back to basic knowledge of, okay, what can I do? As a health coach, I don't tell you what to do. You tell me what your problem is, and I help you identify what you're doing that could be, hampering your progress. It goes as a health coach, it's the complete opposite as a military. Because in the military, it's AAR. You focus on what you do wrong and fix it immediately. As a health coach, you're not supposed to do that. It's easier coaching military people, but with civilians, like you can't talk to them that way. They're going to think you're nuts. But you really just have to get back to the basics, like, hey, tell me a little bit about your sleep habits. What's going on? And then you'd be like, hey, man, are you aware that X, Y, and Z affects this? Like your body temperature, heart rate, don't work out before bed. Don't take a hot bath or a hot shower 30 minutes before bed because your core temperature and your heart rate are going to be up. And so it takes extra long to get those things down to get you in deep restorative sleep. If your heart rate's cranking, your metabolism's up, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing for deep sleep. And so it's just basic information that you can pick up a book and find. Is this stuff that's put out on social media and TikTok? Absolutely not. Maybe in China, but not here. Like this is information everybody should know. You should be teaching your kids this. I teach my daughter this since she was 6 years old, like how to eat, how to read labels, just basic stuff. And guess what, man? Like when the check engine lights go off and you know what they mean, you can correct the action of what's happening. Hey, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. My body's not responding appropriately. I need to go to the doctor. Or, hey, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. My body's responding absolutely great. I'm building muscle. I got more energy, more clarity. That's when you know you're resilient and bouncing back. If you're maintaining or getting worse, you're not bouncing back, right? If you feel horrible, if you feel depressed, if you feel anxious, those are all check engine lights telling you something's wrong. There's something in your environment causing your nervous system to say, hey, I need to respond to this. Until you simplify and start pulling, like you said, pulling one thing away at a time and seeing how the body responds. And for people with complex PTSD, childhood trauma, and repetitive trauma,
Mm-hmm.
it's not, hey, just change these things and you're going to be okay. That's the toughest one to solve right there, brother. You can talk all you want, read all the books all you want, but that takes time and a lot of work to overcome that type of adversity as a young kid because that stuff's hardwired in you for survival. So breaking those patterns is difficult, but very doable. We can talk about plant-based medicine and some other stuff, but it's if people listening out there are like, yeah, man, I had that childhood and yeah, you're right. I'm feeling this way. I'm on the hamster wheel every night. I have crippling anxiety, all this stuff that's happening. It's like you can talk all you want. That's not going to work. And medications will actually prevent you from processing trauma. And so you have to be able to access the subconscious and you have to be in a safe environment where you trust people, you feel safe, and you know you have the space and the time to work and do the hard work without distracting, without alcohol, toxic relationships, or any of those things. And if you can get to that space and do the work, man, life can improve significantly. And I see it every day in my program. So it's just you got to be willing to do the work. There's no easy way out of it. There's no easy button on that. There's things that help, like plant-based medicine, ketamine therapy, MERT, TMS. I mean, nature is one of the best ways to deal with depression and anxiety. Get out in nature and unplug from all the shit you got going on in life. Being at the beach, toes in the sand, sun in the face, breathing in that ocean water. Basics, man. Getting back to basics is, one of the best ways to regulate your nervous system and process things. But we're so distracted as a society. It's like radio's got to be on all the time, got to be looking at Instagram, got to be scrolling, text messaging, phone. When you're doing that, you're not going to feel safe. You're not going to feel, at peace. You're not going to be calm. You're not going to be able to sit in silence with yourself and your own thoughts. And that's what we're missing as a society. We don't do that. And we call everything now therapy, like going out and riding your bike, therapy. No, that's called fucking basics. It's going out in
Right.
nature. It's not therapy. If you have a life you have to escape, you have to reevaluate your situation, right? If those things called living is therapy, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, which is surviving at that point. If you have to find things to escape your life, right? And that's what it is. That's what suicide is. It's an escape to pain and suffering. And if that problem is getting worse in society, we should be what's going on? What's happening here? Why are people suffering? Why are people in pain? And it comes down to lack of understanding about the environment we live in. We talk about the physiological stuff, but the psychological stuff is not losing the ability to recover or bounce back. When you're in a situation where you feel like you're never going to get better or the situation is never going to improve, those thoughts are going to cross your mind and be like, hey, man, like I'm letting everyone down, letting myself down, I'm suffering, I don't want to go through this anymore. That's not bouncing back, right? Psychologically. And physiologically, not bouncing back is cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes. Yeah, that's like I said, that's it's that simple. And
So
if you can have those conversations with people, and figure out what's driving these things, I'd say about over 50% of the time it's going to go back to how they grew up and what type of environment, what type of relationships they had, or loss and betrayal, like two big ones right there, right? So,
So complex trauma, that's just for folks in case you're not tracking that. I mean, you could always Google it too.
hmm,
That as Jeff alluded to earlier, I mean, those would be like molestation or like just anything that's happened at a young age where it's just like embedded in, and it, especially if it happened over and over and over again. Um, so as far as like I know plant-based medicines, I'm a big believer in that. Or I don't say believer, but from my own personal experience, but I also know of cases where so I guess my question is like the screening process for, because it's not for everyone, right? If
no,
somebody has psychosis or uh
bipolar.
bipolar, because I know spiritual narcissism is a thing, um
Hmm.
or yeah, so but to get into the I think that is definitely a great tool, as you alluded to, like nature's like medicine, like in a lot of the plant-based things, not plant-based, but plant medicine. Um, how, I guess, what questions do you normally ask folks before doing that?
We actually don't ask anyone to do it. People come to us. It's one of those things, the medicine talks to you.
Yeah.
You'll know when you're ready. So we don't push psychedelic assisted therapy on anybody. People come to us for that type of stuff. And you have to be ready. You have to be able to surrender, let your guard down. And if you're fighting the medicine, it's going to be a miserable experience. So hang on a second. I don't know what the hell is going on.
Hmm.
I don't know. Everything's shut down on my stuff. So hang on. We'll pick up that one in a second.
I don't know, man. Like, I have issues with podcasts often. I have problems with electronics for some strange reason. Like, shit would just go out on me quite often. It's actually kind of a running joke in my house.
Yeah, I don't know
Like,
what just happened, but all my windows just shut down on me.
oh man, hopefully China's not getting into your shit.
No. So, but going back to your point, man, like plant-based medicine isn't for everybody, and you'll know when you're ready for it. It's I see it all the time, and it goes back to it helps access the subconscious. All the shit we stuffed back there, and so we'll deal with that later. It's a way to get there and get those things out. And I've done it, man. I've done ketamine therapy. I've done psilocybin, 5-MeO DMT. Uh, I've done MDMA, and I can tell you all of them do something different. But I mean, the ketamine, they hit us with pretty high doses. The BA did hit me with the ketamine. That really cracked me wide open and like was able to blast me up into the universe and pull myself away. Dissociation, that's what a ketamine does, is a dissociative. But let me see all my shit from a third person perspective and really process and make sense of everything that was ever said to me, done to me, happened to me. And it was crazy. It was like, flashes of all these things, words that were said, conversations that happened, things, fights that happened, all the near death experiences and war and civilian side. And it was just like, holy crap, dude. Like we shrug it off and laugh about a lot of that stuff. We're like, yeah, whatever. But it has an effect. Like you don't think it does, but it does. And some of it might shock you. You're just like, that thing, really? Holy crap. It just helps you make sense of a lot, get clarity on some things that are weighing you down. And from that's when I went and did the plant-based medicine after that. I already had a good understanding of how the universe worked and how everything was connected, and was really able to just push the ego aside and say, okay, dude, surrender, stop fighting all this stuff and get your ego out of the way, check it at the door and pay attention to the lessons. And when you do that, man, the doors start opening for you, not smacking you in the face. But it's ego death, and the plant-based medicine really helps you do that. It's also a reference point for people, especially who grew up with complex PTSD. They don't know what, like I always ask people when I'm doing my sessions, I'll be like, hey, take me to the point in your life where you're like, hey, I've never been right since this moment. Or if it's, I don't know what right ever was because my life was so fucked up. And when they say, yeah, my life, I don't know what normal ever was, that's like a dead giveaway of CPTSD. They don't have a reference point. And with like 5-MeO DMT, There's a reason they call it the God molecule because it's like control alt delete. It can show you all the bad stuff, like the hell, and it shows you the heaven, right? The rebirth. And it takes everything away. And for that, brief 5, 10 minutes, it's like everything bad that ever happened to you in your life is completely gone. And you're just you connected to the universe and nature, and everything is like awesome. You feel love. And it's like, I don't know how to explain it. People who've done it will know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's like, man, life is actually not that bad, but it's just the shit that happened to us that we unnecessarily carry. And we carry it for survival, but that shit no longer serves us. And when we're not in survival mode, we don't have to be reminded every day that there's danger out there. We know that. And, we got to stop looking at trauma as this ball and chain that we can never get rid of. If you can find the silver lining in it, and understand what the lesson was, it's a lot easier to swallow that pill and say, okay, right? Like with childhood sexual abuse and stuff like that, it's easier said than done. You can be like, I'm just going to forgive this person or whatever. It's really making yourself right with the spiritual side of things and being like, okay, this is, what happened to me is not who I am. It's not my responsibility, but healing and recovering and finding my purpose and living in my purpose and giving back, that's where I can feel good about myself. That's where I can, hang on to this world and have something that keeps me grounded here. But if you don't have that, man, the people who've gone through that type of torture, I'll call it, is if you don't have that distraction, whether it's a job, a relationship, or some other thing, if you don't have it, there's nothing tethering you to this earth when you're questioning your survival, right? Your
Mm.
existence. And that's tough, man. You got empathy for that, but unless you've been that person, it's tough to understand. And there's a lot of people, and that's the bulk of my work every week. It's the TBI stuff's easy. The toxic exposure stuff, easy. Cancers, you got cancer, you got to go do the treatment, right? We try to get ahead of it. But with complex trauma, it's horrible. It's one of those things where it's like you're figuring it now in your 40s and you're like, what the fuck? And the biggest thing is like, why did I wait so long to get help? Or I wish I'd known this information 20 years ago. If I had $1 for every time someone told me that, it's ridiculous. We live in the information age. We shouldn't be figuring this out after the divorce, after the discharge. Like, we need to get ahead of this. We need to be proactive and teach people not all trauma is bad, man. Like you need stress and adversity in life to overcome things, right? That's post-traumatic growth makes you unfuckable with. And if you can learn that lesson, there's nothing that can stop you. You're indestructible. But you just can't be, you can't be a victim to your circumstances. And a lot of good reading material out there on that, but like Man's Search for Meaning is a good one for people who like to read. But, that was Viktor Frankl. He was a psych that was in Auschwitz and had to eat a bunch of shit sandwiches to survive, and figured out that, hey, man, you got to do what you got to do. And you got empathy from both sides. He saw all of it while he was there, and he had to be judgment free. You don't know how you're going to react until you're in that situation, right?
Mm.
So it's, again, I get it why people kill themselves. I get it why people abuse substances. I get why people become abusers because they were abused as kids. Doesn't mean it's okay, but I understand it. Like you're a product of your environment. But intelligence, us being, high IQ species, we need to figure that out and say, okay, let's not project that onto our kids. Let's not repeat these patterns and keep perpetuate this shit for generations. And the people that heal from trauma, they stop it in the tracks. Generational trauma. If they grew up in abusive households or with, where alcohol was institutionalized as kids, especially New England, where I'm from,
Mm.
you're just going to keep repeating it, right? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It's an awakening we're happening here, but like I said, man, people shouldn't have to figure this out after the catastrophe. So,
Yeah, I mean, that kind of echoes true with me as well. The culture is, my culture here in San Antonio, it's like every event there's alcohol, and that's what
yeah,
I was, and started to become my identity.
yeah,
Football, everything, military reinforced that. On top of like my house, constantly chaos.
right,
But I say all that to say, like, I've come to the point in understanding and appreciation for the struggle that the people in my household went through, more specifically my parents,
Yeah.
and like appreciating what they had to go through, what they experienced, and then like them not having the tools or this information, as you highlighted,
Yeah.
to do so, or the support to even go about it, right?
Yeah.
Because they weren't allowed to talk about it. There was all these things, right, that were out there that was is bullshit information, or like because they didn't want to bring shame on the family or whatever, right? I think you said you're Italian, right? So it's kind of like the family's everything, right? So it's all these things, and then like fast forward, and I also like would ask myself the question, how come I didn't do this a while back, or how come I wasn't aware of it? And I wonder, and I kind of give myself a little bit of grace in there. It's like I don't know if I was ready to hear or heal at that point,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, right?
Complete
But
sense. That's the universe, right? Like you're going to get your lessons till you get your lessons. And if you're, like you said, if you're not in receive mode, it's going to be,
right.
yeah,
So I psilocybin helped me, and I'll go back to it just to kind of people. When I was younger, when I was young and dumb, I did like, LSD or like acid, right? Um, and I didn't do it in the right way or whatever. I was just young and dumb, right? Uh, but I got exactly what I put into it. I got just chaos, right? It wasn't like a bad trip, but it started to become one. But like fast forward, talking about the medicine speaking to you, I did it with the right intent, set and setting, trying to really work on stuff. And this was after all my treatments and stuff, going to inpatient and home based Boston and like all these different programs. And where I really started to kind of unravel it, get the tools, understand, and all those things, and like deal with some of the major stuff, and then start to kind of pull that thread, if you will, of my childhood.
mm,
Um, and also experience that with other veterans or other, individuals or people, and just understand like the human experience, and understand that I'm not going to understand or appreciate what you went through because you're a different person. You have different core values, you have a different outlook on your life. So it also brought me to the place of not like doing it the best I can, not to judge others or try to, and just appreciate what they're going through, and just kind of like, hey man, I got my own stuff, and I'll listen and stuff, but like it's because at some point, like especially like you're trying to help people, but at the same time you're like, what the fuck do I know? I'm in here too, you know. But at the very basis of it all, there was an appreciation of like understanding that this we can bond on the symptoms of it and not necessarily all the experiences of it,
yeah,
because the hypervigilance, the not sleeping, nightmares, all those things, right, that we can like, oh okay, you're going through it too, but in your own way. And like and it's that spectrum, right? Some people are like more acute, and some people are like kind of, and everyone kind of falls differently, right, based off their life experiences, and then their upbringing, and then like how willing they are to see it, address it, accept it, and everything in between. um but that I do agree with you. I haven't done DMEOT. I jacked that up.
mm,
But the psilocybin was definitely like a motherly energy, and it
mhm,
did detach me. It like took me through my whole life, uh even to current, kind of showed me like when I was ready. I think that was the one thing I was most appreciated about it. It wasn't like jarring like LSD, or where it was just kind of like a roller coaster ride. This was like just kind of like, hey, you ready? Kind of, and not necessarily in that voice, but just the feeling of it. And then like when I kind of started to let go in these different layers, I was shown more, right? And it was just like showing my life, showing the different, how these different, I don't want to say characters, but these different family members and their experiences and my experiences kind of like brought me to this point. So it was kind of like this slideshow, if you will,
mhm,
with these thoughts that came, or not thoughts, but these different perspectives or understandings of this life and my life, and kind of just reframe it in such a way that I didn't have the capacity, the understanding, or even know that they were there, right? And it was very a very loving energy, and but I did it with the right intention. I wasn't watching YouTube. I wasn't watching whatever. I wasn't watching The Wall or whatever. It was like really respecting what I'm trying to do and have a gauge, a direction of what I'm trying to do, and as opposed to kind of just like flipping through the channels, so to speak, consciously or energetically. And that did so much for me, and I think it helped um, that I was ready for it at that time, and just the way that everything led up to it. It's gonna sound like I'm crazy if I shared this with a few people,
Yeah,
uh, how it came to me, but it's wild. And but the people that I spoke with, I even spoke with a shaman in Peru, and he wasn't surprised at all. He was like, "No, yeah, this is just another story." I mean, not that he was discounting it, but I was just like, "Man, like that's how it happened. It was crazy." But either way, like, but I've also seen the other side where some people that take it and they do it with the wrong intention. They do it kind of like willing, like, and they're just watching, like, whatever. And
yeah,
it's not a whole lot of examples, but a few examples that I've heard of, and um, and it just shifts. I mean, I don't know what underlying
yeah,
um things that they had going on. I don't know what their medical history was, but it wasn't good. And so I say all that to say, like, anybody listening, find what works for you, and do your research, set and setting, understand what your conditions are, um, and really try to get the tools prior to even addressing those things. Those are kind of like, uh, in my opinion, like kind of like you've tried all these things, you've done some work, and now you're kind of ready for to understand even what's going on and understand yourself, as opposed to just kind of jumping into it and not understanding anything, and then you don't know how to let go. You don't know what the experience is. You don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have some type of tools to understand what's coming at you or what's being processed, if that makes sense.
yeah. Integration therapy. That's a big
Yeah.
thing. If you're not doing the work, I mean, all the programs we're partnered with, you're doing coaching and therapy prior to going. You're setting your intent. You're learning how to navigate, learning how to ground yourself if you need to come out of it. Some of the stuff you're not coming out of Abuget and ayahuasca or 5-MeO. You just got it. Once you're in it, you're in it, right? But it's really like you said. It's intent. You got to set your intent. And for people who their egos are just so strong and they think everyone else in the world's fucked up and they're fine, that's not for them. It's not going to be effective. You got to be able to check the ego at the door and just really say, "Show me what I need to see," and hey man, I want to feel emotions. I want to feel happiness. I want to feel sadness. I want to be able to cry. Like you have to really work on those things. Or hey, I want to see how my childhood affected me. I want to see why I act and behave the same. What happened to me? Why am I projecting that onto other people? And journaling, right? Helping get all those things down and make sense of what comes to you. With trauma, you don't remember trauma like a movie, but there's flashes, whether it was words, whether it was sights, smells, sounds, touches, like those are like triggers, right? That's how you process those things. So when you're going through the slideshow, like you said, that's exactly what you're seeing, those flashes and being able to make sense of what came up and write it down. When I coach people to go do all that stuff, I'm like, hey, you're not going to be able to write while you're in there, but when you come out of there, try to remember everything that came up, whether chicken scratch or whatever. Just try to write it down. Then when you do your integration therapy, working with your therapist, like work through what came up there, and then you got to reprocess. That's like EMDR, right? I've
Mhm.
moved since rap, like reprocessing. You got to desensitize, then reprocess. So EMDR does the same thing like psilocybin does. It calms the nervous system down to access the subconscious. It does it through eye movement. That's EMDR. You can do it through breath work, right? You can deep meditation. You can get to the subconscious by doing all those without drugs. That's why I love what you said. Like, do whatever works for you, what you feel safe doing. But biggest thing is safety. Wherever you go to do this, the environment, you have to feel safe. You have to feel trust, right? You have to be knowing that if you let that guard down, you're going to be okay. and it's all about setting, like you said. That is everything. And I see all these wazoo trips. There's only a handful that I'll work with in Mexico and some other places in Central South America, but like you shouldn't be going on, a friggin' psychedelic retreat in a foreign country with strangers, right? Like
Right.
that that doesn't add up to any risk assessment you ever do in your life. Like you're going to be no control of your situation whatsoever. So safety and setting is everything, and making sure you're working with professionals. If not, you're just doing drugs. And if you open Pandora's box and don't know how to put that stuff, reprocess it and make sense of it, it can make you way worse off than you started. So really do the work. Don't rush to failure on stuff like that. And get with the right people. If you're out there and wanting to do this stuff, vet the programs that are doing it. And make sure you work with a therapist that understands psychedelic assisted therapy. But highly effective. Like I said, it's not for everybody. But if you're willing to do the work, you're going to be able to have an expedited recovery to trauma by doing those things instead of, how many people do you know have done talk therapy for 5 years? They're in the
Yeah.
same damn patterns, and they're talking and talking and talking, but they're not getting anywhere. And sometimes that's when you have to bring out the big guns and really be able to, hey man, it's gonna suck. There's no easy way out of it, but you got to be willing to do the work. So that's the psychedelic portion of it is the easy part. It's what comes after doing the hard work. That's where you make your money.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the reintegration therapy or reintegration coach or whoever you're working with,
Integration.
because was it integration or reintegration? Like I'm talking
Integration.
about afterwards.
Yeah.
It's still integration. I
Yep.
guess it makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Um. Anyway, yeah. So it's so I've also understand and learned that some people may go into it with false pretenses where they feel like it's gonna fix everything, not
Yeah.
understanding like they have to apply the lessons learned
Hmm.
afterwards. It's gonna be always a continuous. Uh, you're always gonna continually have to put in the work even after. You will be shown what you're shown, and then you are. That's the work you got to do is to work on it, make the changes, or take things out, or what have you. And but the data supports it. I think here in Texas, they just legalized ibogaine for veterans, which is awesome. From what I understand about that, that's like a 24-hour thing.
That's a long ride.
Yeah, it's a long ride.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing. It's just more vivid and detailed. I don't have any experience with it. I've just read about it, and yeah. Have you done ibogaine
I was
or
supposed to go do it and I broke my leg.
um? Yeah, and the universe reaching out to you. Man,
Yeah.
not yet, not
Timing
yet.
wasn't right on that one. No, I
It's
mean, I'm in a place now in life where I know there's still some stuff to unpack, obviously, but I don't feel like I'm in a place where I have to go do something. Like I feel pretty content. I have peace. My heart rate variability's doubled since I retired. My heart variability used to stay in the 20s and 30s. I'm in the between 50s and 70s now.
oof,
And
nice.
as you get older, that's not supposed to happen, right? But when you're living 110 miles an hour going 1,000 different directions, it's what you're going to see. And I've just really tried to simplify my life. Spend more time in nature, spend more time with my family, be more intent about what I ingest, consume, whether it's social media, whether it's the news or whatever, or people. I'm really picky. When you heal, your circle shrinks, and the things you tolerate, that list grows real short. And it's just, it doesn't mean you're better than anybody or whatever. It's just, some people are poison. And substances, I'll go back to alcohol. Alcohol is a group one human carcinogen. It's poison. And in our society, we drink to celebrate, we drink to mourn, we drink when we're bored, I mean, we're drinking when we're thirsty. And it's there, man. If you can just see it for what it is, like I've got my life where I don't need to escape it. It wasn't always that way, but I've done a lot of work to get there. I don't want to fuck it up. I don't want to feel like shit.
Hmm.
I want to be able like I can ride every day now and be recovered the next day. When I was active duty, It would take me 72 hours before I was recovered to ride. I can ride 13 miles every day and be fully recovered the next day. At 49 years old, dude, that's unheard of. You
Hmm.
know, my heart rate variability and my ability to bounce back are way better now than ever. And that's practicing and putting it into practice, right? That's wellness. And it can be done. You know, old dogs can learn new tricks, but it's like I said, man, start small and whatever it is, whether it's your sleep, whether it's your food, whether it's your environment or people you hang out with, just pay attention to it. Understand how it affects you, right? Everything in your environment, you respond to, your nervous system responds, whether you know it or not. And that's it. It's that simple. And if you can identify what's making you feel bad, you remove it. Or you do things to protect yourself, put up the armor to go in that environment, right? Observe, don't absorb, and then get out of it and then get rid of that shit. And some people don't have a choice, right? First responders working with death and destruction every day. Doctors, lawyers have to see the worst of humanity on a day. Like it applies to everybody, not just military. Everybody goes through shit. They all have trauma. But it's what do you do to balance it? And as a modern society, we don't put recovery, maintenance, self-care in the schedule. We don't do that. We're the last people to get maintained, especially you got kids. Or if you're financially strapped and have to work multiple jobs, you're in survival mode. Not a good place to be, man. And I empathize with all those people out there that are struggling. And you know, in the pandemic, if we learned anything, it was like, what the fuck am I doing? But this is not good for me. There's a silver lining of the pandemic. And for a lot of people, made a lot of big changes after that of what am I doing with my life? Like time, you can't get it back, man. Can't make more of it, can't buy it. And it's like what live a life of purpose on purpose. And that's all I can wish for everybody is to be able to find their purpose, find their gift, and be able to use both to live a fulfilling life, right? Can be content. That's it. Yeah.
You said it, man. It's I feel like in this place that I am. I was talking to a guy the other day. I posted something, he replied. I guess he knew the guy. But anyways, we got to talking about kind of the place I was and where I am now, like kind of mutually, right? Kind of just not really going into details.
Yeah.
But as you kind of alluded to, like being in that survival mode or not even understand there's a problem or not even be able to see a way out. I speak more specifically to me. And I couldn't even imagine in my best creative mindset at that time or before, anytime before, that I would be doing this at this age, riding mountain bikes, hanging out with great people,
Yeah.
um, doing any of this stuff I've been doing. And then at 40, what am I, 46 now? Starting jujitsu and MMA, rolling some, you know, getting tossed around and stuff. There's a lot of maintenance I have to do those things. Like you talking about diet, food,
Yeah.
supplements in the way of minerals and all those things, right? That I have to do, core stabilization, my back's jacked up, knees, neck, etc. Right? But it's being around people like yourself. They're like, man, he could do it. I had him on the last episode, Nick McNally. I think he was a
Yeah.
ranger. Uh,
Mm.
oh yeah, Nick. He was jacked up too. Like his back fused and fucking all jacked up, right? But that dude's doing like CrossFit competition. He looks amazing, right?
Yeah.
But it's like to see the resilience in people, right? Like despite their injuries and despite everything they've gone through, to not only push through but persevere and just continue to fucking kick ass, right? And
Yeah.
if I would have stayed in the same circles, the same, and again, like you alluded to earlier, it's not that I'm saying I'm better than anyone or nothing, but if I didn't start to eliminate some of the things, to troubleshoot my own whatever was going on with me, putting alcohol to the side,
Yeah.
putting like all these things to the side. I had to add some stuff to take away some stuff. Cannabis being one of them to get off pharmaceuticals. That was the best option at the time. VA didn't want to help me.
Yeah.
I don't even smoke now. Um, and or haven't smoked in a while. Just because I knew that was temporary as well. And uh but yeah, it was just these things to because I don't want to ever have a crutch. And mountain biking was one of those things too. I was like, I realized quickly that I was trying to use mountain biking to
Yeah.
to to cope. And I'm like, no, like I don't want to be controlled by any one thing. Because if I can't mountain bike anymore, then what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do? So
Mm.
I started to go back to other things that I used to do, and now I'm kind of coming back to like balance, right? You talked about balance, and that's the thing I harp on with anybody I talk to, that I have these conversations with, is like the difference between a medicine and a poison is a dosage, right?
Yeah.
So it's like anything could be, would it be work, whether it be mountain biking, whether it be whatever, you name it, right? Whatever your therapy is, that could be your, like your poison eventually, because if you're using it for the wrong reasons, the wrong intent, or just abusing it, right? Because if you don't, as you alluded to earlier, if you don't recover, you're going riding like 6 times a week, and you just
Yeah.
feel like shit afterwards. That means your body, you haven't recovered properly enough. You haven't hydrated. You haven't uh to do the things to sustain that type of lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Um, but my point is like I don't know what anybody that's listening to, what specifically they're going through, whether veteran, non-veteran, first responder, what have you. And I don't know what the future has for you, but I know the possibilities, like you can't imagine what is waiting for you if you can overcome and shift your mindset and reframe what you're going through, or the situation, or you have the confidence to potentially like not be with a toxic person that's just like weighing you down and like just fucking abusing you or whatever. I mean, you can run the gambit on like anything that could be drawing you down, or whether it's something you did or something like I've done. I wasn't always this person, and
Mhm.
anybody in high school or that knew me after high school or whatever, like I'm pretty sure they could like point, right. But the and I'm not proud of any of those things I've done. Would I do those things again? No. But at the same time, it's like we've all done dumb shit. We've all done stuff we regret. But at the same time, I want to say I regret it, but at the same time, it's brought me to here where like I can appreciate. And now when I hear somebody else's story, I'm like, dude, I get it. I've fucking been there. I know what it is to do that, or to be this or whatever. And I'll share those little nuggets with them. Like, hey, dude, I grew up in a bad neighborhood. I've fought. I've probably beat up people with it. I didn't even get the full story or whatever, and I'm not proud of that.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, it's like, man, I was that that wasn't right, and I shouldn't have done that, and I've grown from that, and I wouldn't do that again, and I probably paid for it and then some with everything I've gone through, um, relative to my experience, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing too, is I see that people are not willing. I've had a lot of people like minimize their experiences because they're like, I've even had first responders tell me that. Hey, like, hey, but I'm not a veteran, so it's not like y'all. I'm like, dude, y'all are fucking there every day. Or
Every
like, y'all,
day.
you know what I mean? Like, that's your job. You've been doing it for like 15, 20 years. And
Yeah.
like, so I'll correct them. I'm like, dude, don't try not to, like, what is it? A thief of joy is comparison.
Yeah.
Comparison is a thief of joy. Um, so with that, like I've talked to a lot of people, first responder, non first responder. I'm like, hey man, your experience is your experience, and if it's affecting you, then it's affecting you. Like
Yeah.
regardless of what anybody says, that's your worldview. Don't let anybody try to tell you different. You need to handle it, because if it's starting to
Yeah.
affect you personally or your family, or like affecting your way of life, and you have the opportunity to change it, then you should probably change it, because it's not going to get better if you just keep kicking it in the fucking closet.
Nope. No, I mean, you nailed it. I have two brothers that are firemen, and they see it every day. Like we saw it when we deployed, and we were part of the trauma. We caused a lot of the problems, and it was like, but at least we had a little bit of buffer between leaving the battlefield and coming home. Whereas first responders sitting there at their dinner table 30 minutes later. That's insanity. You
Yeah.
know, how do you put on that face as dad or husband when you just saw someone get murdered? And it's like, yeah, I use that all the time when I teach, and I always tell people, I was like, look, man, for the major in our career field, the majority of people don't have issues of what they did in war. It's what happened to them as kids. I'll go back to that one. I can say that confidently. I'm not saying that's all the military, but I'm saying people seeking help for behavioral health related issues in our program, the majority of them are what's happened to them as kids, not in the military. The biggest one I see in the military is moral injury, loss and betrayal and things that have happened there. But as far as like traumatic events, they're there, but people are like, yeah, dude, that's not what's weighing me down. And when you get to the bottom of it, you're like, okay, we all got a lot of stuff in common. And there's a lot of people that are in denial about that too. They don't want to admit it. But I can tell you, I've got a whole database that supports the opposite of what they think. And the military knows they did all the studies of looking at the majority of military recruits came up with high ACEs, like high adverse childhood experiences scores. That's been done multiple times, obviously, because normal people wouldn't subjugate themselves to this type of environment and shit.
Hmm.
And they'd be like, "No, dude, I'm not doing that. You stupid." And with us, we're like, "Bring it on, dude. Embrace the suck." We literally have a saying in the military for it, and yeah, it's because we're used to it. In the military, they pay you, they feed you, they clothe you, like they give you awards for doing the crazy shit that you'd get arrested for here. And for a lot of people, they do real well in that environment because of how they grew up. But again, going back to when you leave that environment, those attributes and traits become toxic because you're not going to ask for help. You're not going to express your emotions. You're not going to hold your boundaries. You're never going to say no to people because you've been conditioned to say yes to everything in the military. You don't say no, like that doesn't exist. And so it's like when people figure it out, they're like, oh shit, like, okay, that explains the relationships, it explains the job choices. And they're like, okay, I know what I need to work on. Not it's this isn't rocket surgery. This isn't like super complicated. It's pretty easy when you look at it. So again, it's getting the information out there, learning how to maintain this thing, mind and body. So
Yeah, definitely. And at some point, it's also understanding, like you're talking about mind and body. It's also like spiritual, right? Addressing and understanding like how we exist, um, and a huge component to that for me understanding is getting back in nature. And I didn't expect that. That's not why I did it. Um, but at the same time, I think my natural curiosity and the place I was at the time, uh, more like mental space and like trying to just do something that was going to keep me propelling forward. And that was just doing something that like a restore point, right? So you kind of brought it up earlier when you were a kid and you used to ride bikes, surf, and I forgot the snowboard or ski. So
mm,
same thing for me, unknowingly, whether it was my spirit pulling, uh, my soul trying to, hey man, do this. When I retired, I bought a mountain bike, right? And I've talked about this before. And I mean, I didn't. I it was probably like a poor investment, at the time, maybe financially, but at the same time, it wasn't because one, it started to get me outdoors. It brought that adrenaline rush, right? Of like riding a bike. It started to, I didn't understand at the time, but it brought me back to uh a restored point in my life where like even though my life was chaotic or my household, and let me just say like I'm not saying that from a standpoint. It's just what it was. I didn't know any better. I didn't know that that was my environment. I would go to the people's houses and like it was strange. It was so quiet. But at the same time, that's just what it was. I didn't know any better. I didn't have somebody be like, "Hey, man, like what?" Like I was just fucking crazy.
mm,
But it either way. But riding a bike, right? My first bike was a fucking what's it called? A three wheel, the big wheel, the
yeah,
ET handle, or the e brake.
big
I was
wheels, big wheels.
yeah, yeah, dude. That was my first bike, and I
Same.
I was doing crazy stuff on that, and uh that was amazing, right? And then I had a Huffy later. But I was just exploring in my neighborhood. I couldn't go really far because my parents didn't want me to. Now, did I break that? Yes, I would go places on it. Uh, but fast forward, when I was stationed in Germany, I bought a mountain bike from my landlord's kids had a mountain bike that was my size, and I went out with them a few times. Most of the time, I was hungover. But I felt great afterwards. I'd pass out, like, and then, and I just kind of left it there, right? And then when I retired, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. I didn't, and then I just kind of thought of, hey man, the last thing I can remember doing that brought me joy, right? Because in my mind, I was like, my life is over in the sense of physical activity, right? Because you start to kind of believe those stories, right? That people like put on you, and these you start to accept these adopted ideas, like, hey, your back, is only gonna get worse from here. Your neck's only gonna get worse from here. But they didn't tell you like, hey man, keep moving, because if you stop moving, you're gonna seize up. And I had to learn that, right? Because when I stopped moving, like at night, like when I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd walk into the restroom, and like, I was walking like an old man. And I'm not saying I still don't walk like an old man, but I'm a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? Like stuff was cracking and popping, and I was just kind of hunched over, because that was my diet. I was still drinking. I was on SSRIs, and I'm not recommending this to anyone. Like I should have been smarter. Um, but either way, I was still addressing the things and taking things away, but that was just kind of like where I was the transition point. But when I started riding a mountain bike, it started to kind of bring the awareness of like, hey, like I don't even know what my baseline is anymore emotionally, because I've been on these SSRIs for so long. Like I feel numb. I don't know where I'm at in space, right? I still feel like I still have these thoughts. Is this the SSRIs? Am I getting better? Like it's all these questions started coming in. And then I still wanted to ride more. So I was like, well, I don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat that. And and then being around people that were always in a good mood, seemingly, right? I mean, I don't know what they were like at home, but every time I on the trail, it's rare that I run into anybody that's an asshole. Every so often, but most of the time everyone's in a good mood. So I just want to be out there. And then COVID happened. So my point is when I would go on rides with myself, I would look at the trees and I would just be like, man, like, and I would see how they would shape, and when something would break, and they would like heal around it like a broken bone, and I started to draw these parallels, right, of like, especially I was breaking stuff at the time, but I started to draw these parallels of like how they're pretty much similar to us. And then like I started doing more research on how they communicate with each other. Once being bit by beetles, they send like, um uh they share like, I don't know if they create, you guys could look this up, but they create or they send something to like dissuade the beetles from chewing on the trees or what have you. But they communicate with each other. There's like a mother tree. Either way, there's science that supports all this. And then I just started zooming out, and then I started asking like the question, like, well, I'm learning all these things. I know there's other people that are not in a great place because I was with them in hospitals, right? And there must be more of them that haven't. And like I have all this information, and that's kind of why I had the idea of starting this podcast. It started out kind of in a different direction, but like anything else, right, it starts to shift, and you start to kind of strip away of what you're trying to do and have more direction, right? And um, either way, I saw that too. It started with a mountain bike, and that was the tie to it. So if it's like drawing, if you used to draw as a kid, or if you used to play music or an instrument, that's another thing I did. I bought a ukulele, and I play that. But it's getting to a restore point, if you will, and to start to be creative in that way. And you'd be surprised how that starts to open up different ideas and messages, and starts to help you unfold or even process what you're trying to understand. Because if you're so close to the problem, like it's like standing in front of a wall, the answer's like right here, but you're so close to it and you don't ever step away from it, so you can't see the answers like sitting right there. It's like when you're having a conversation, like we're having a conversation right now, and you're like, Simon, just look around the wall, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, duh, it was right there.
Yeah.
um
We'll go back to survival mode. What happens when you're threatened? What happens to your vision?
yeah, it's like focused, like
What happens
hyper
to your mouth? Dry mouth. What happens to your heart rate?
speeds up.
All right. So when you're doing all those things and the adrenaline's going, where are you looking?
Gotta look at the trail. Yeah.
What happens when you relax? The aperture opens up. When you
Yeah.
build confidence, when you start breathing and you start telling yourself to, hey man, stop death gripping the bars. Hey, heavy feet, light hands. Focus on your breathing. What happens to the aperture when you ride? It opens up.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have to do it all the time. Like riding cross country, I'm like, us, we get on a bike, we're like, all right, go fast as you can. And it's like, today I did a little, zone two, zone three ride. It's like, well, looking up, saw the owls, saw deer, saw squirrels. Like I
Hmm.
was looking out, I was looking at everything, not just the trail ahead of me. But I was able to slow down enough to do that and enjoy it. And that's mindfulness, is being aware of when you start to get the tunnel vision. And a lot of people, they live their whole life going 100 miles an hour in survival mode. They're not opening up the aperture. Um, and so it's one of those things. Once you get it, you get it, and you don't forget it. And that's it, man. It's life. It applies to everything. Everything you do on a mountain bike applies to everything you do every day in life. Learning how to operate it, control it, maintain it. Just, I'll go back to everything we talked about at the beginning. Pretend you are your mountain bike. Maintain it and operate it the same way as you do your bike. And if you do, it's going to last longer, right? What determines the lifespan of a car or a mountain bike? The
Maintenance.
environment you're operating in, how you operate it, how you maintain it, right?
Hmm.
That's it. And genetics, how it's built, right? The quality of how it's built. There's a little bit in there. But if you do the basics, that bike's going to last a lot longer. And it's the same with your mind and your body. That's it. It's that basic. And if you can just look at it that way, you'll be successful. My biggest advice is treat yourself like you do your car, your house, your bike, whatever it is. Apply the same type of maintenance principles to it, and you get similar results.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love how you like sum it all up. Like you have these like key words that I will say. I take the scenic route, I like to call it, and just kind of talk about all the scenery of it. But I bring it back to one point. But I love how you just kind of put it in. It's so succinct the way you put it, and that's one thing I appreciate. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. On top of that, I just like enjoy talking to you. Um, but so what was I'm curious, like when they read your retirement orders and they like what was going through your mind?
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, you haven't done it yet?
Bro, I haven't done a retirement ceremony. I didn't do a promotion parties. I mean, a retirement party. I haven't done any
Yeah.
of that yet. I literally took a week off and went straight in. I'm gonna do it.
Are you still on R&R? I mean on terminal?
No, dude, I've been out since April.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I'll probably do it on my year anniversary. My breaking my leg kind of threw a wrench in everything. I was
Yeah.
supposed to get out in January, and I literally on Veterans Day weekend on our event, um, decided to twist the bottom half of my leg the wrong direction, and that threw my entire glide path of retirement, everything I had planned off, and I just hit the ground running in true fashion. And it was like, you know what? Like I tell all my dudes, like, hey man, it's more about your family than you. But I'm gonna do it. I mean, it's part of a process of goes back to why we have funerals, why we have graduations. It's a way to process everything you've been through. You got to acknowledge it. And I know the significance of that, and I'm gonna do it. I just the whole pomp and circumstance shit and hear about all your stuff. Like I,
Yeah.
I, I could care less about that. It's more for my family, to acknowledge everything. For them to see. I don't talk about what I did. I don't show them my schools and my awards and all that stuff. They have no clue. And when they figure it out, like, all those times you were gone doing all those things, that's what all it was. That was the sacrifice. But that's where you acknowledge that for the family. But I'm gonna do that, man. I mean, I'm gonna throw a bash, you know.
Yeah, man.
Um, but I've been out traveling, dude. I've been out. You've seen me. I've been out doing all the things I've always wanted to do. My retirement plan was to buy a Sprinter van, and I work remotely, so I can do whatever. I was going to go hit every bike park in the United States, go ride, go ski, go surf. My daughter graduates high school this year. After that, I'm empty nested, dude. So that's what I'm gonna do. That's my retirement. I'm 100% permanent total. I got a 60% retirement tax free from the Army. Yeah, I'm in a good spot, man. I get paid a lot of money just to wake up, put my feet on the ground. I'm freaking grateful for that, and it was worth it. Every every shit thing I ever did and all the shit sandwiches I ate were absolutely 100% worth it, and I'm glad I did everything I did. Wouldn't change a damn thing. Um, that's it, man. Like I said, is there's no regrets in any of that. It's afforded me to be able to do everything. I don't have to look at my bank account when I want to buy a new bike. I can say yes to things I always have to say no to, as far as like, can you go do this? I'm charting my own course now, and that's a good place to be. That was my vision, was when I gave up mountain biking, skiing, and surfing when I came in the military because I couldn't get injured. Like racing mountain bikes was like the best thing I ever did as a kid. And I watched all my friends go off, their parents taking them to races and doing all the cool shit. That's when downhill started getting big. And I used to watch it from the peripherals, watching my friends race, and dudes I grew up with, in the same areas becoming pros and doing all that shit. I'm like, fuck, man, that would have been rad. But you know what, man, I got to do some really cool shit where I worked. And yeah, man. And guess what I can do now? I can race mountain bikes. That's what it's literally, when I came off the team, it's like, I'm gonna go race for a few years. And I went and did it, man. I went raced cross country, which I hated. One, it kept me in shape, gave me something to work towards, but it was something I had to miss out on as a kid. And I'll probably get on the downhill circuit next year and just do a year just to do it. Because I love doing it, not because I have to prove myself, but it's cool being able to rewrite your own story and you know, chart your own chapter in your book, write your book, and not be reactionary, not being in survival mode and being like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. I mean, like I said, man, my heart rate. For those that don't know what heart rate variability is, it's the variability between beats in your heart. And when you're chronically stressed, you get low variability, meaning it's like a metronome. It's very robotic of how your body is in a stressed state. It's very predictable. And the ability to bounce back from being stressed to relaxation, that's where you want high variability. If you're watching your heart rate when you're racing or riding and you have a quick recovery, that means you're adapted for stress. That means your body is getting it ready and primed for hauling ass. And then when you stop hauling ass and then adrenaline and cortisol stop, you go right back to baseline fast. That means you're adapted well to stress. And when you look at pro athletes, their heart rate variability is through the roof. And that's the easiest way to gauge of how you're reacting to your environment. You can do it with a wearable. I got two of them. And it just takes work, man, and consistency and routine, but it's basic shit. It's the stuff we were never taught. I had to learn as an adult in my late 30s. At my day job in the Army, after I came off the team, I was the HPW guy, Human Performance and Wellness. And I was able to implement all the stuff I'd been doing as a volunteer with Task Force Dagger in an active duty setting and teach dudes about all this stuff. And that was like the most rewarding thing I could ever done in my military. Yeah, overseas doing the cool shit, whatever. I don't care about any of that. I learned I can help way more people back here doing all this stuff than I ever could behind a gun. And that was never who I was. That was a job. Yeah, it was fun chasing the adrenaline, doing all the cool guy shit, but it's not who I am, man. I'm the dude that grew up on a mountain bike, a BMX bike, a skateboard, and a surfboard. And that's what I'm doing now. I don't identify myself. Yeah, I'm a retired Green Beret. I don't tell anybody that shit. They don't even know. They look at me like, oh, you're a mountain biker. You got 5'10". You know what I mean? Like I have left there. Like no one knows what I did, and I don't advertise it. So yeah.
So did you write down that vision, or you just always knew it? Like when I'm
Always
done with
knew.
this,
Yeah,
this.
man. Like when my story, what happened to me when I first came in the military, and that, like I said, the biggest curse or biggest heartache ended up being the biggest blessing. And you can say it now, and at the time it fucking sucked, but it's look, why those things happen. Rejection is God's protection,
Mm,
and it steered me where I needed to be, and that helped me find my purpose and my gift. And having the opportunity to, I had all that written down, like uh, you know I wrote it out on my refrigerator when I was training back up to come in the military after being medically discharged out the first time. And it was like, hey man, if I surrendered, you give me the opportunity to go do this thing and crush it, I'll spend the rest of my life helping those that help me, and giving back and helping people based off my lesson of what happened to me. I used to call it the stigmata. I was like, why fucking me, right? Like, why is this all happening? And literally everything that happened to me was the way I could relate to other people going through it and provide them some type of assistance. And once I embraced that and figured it out, I was unstoppable. I didn't give a shit about anything else. No one could deter me, no matter what. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy. And anyone that knows my story or what I was up against in the military, trying to push all this information out in a time where it wasn't well received, it was not cool, man. It was like my trauma from the military was betrayal. It wasn't my community, so to speak. It was the medical professionals
Mm.
and policymakers and decision makers at high levels that were like, keep your mouth shut. Who the hell are you talking about all this stuff? And I overcame that. Obviously, you look what I do now. So steadfast. I didn't give up. I didn't give a shit what anyone thought, and I knew why I was put on this planet. And once you have that, there's no one's going to stop you from anything. So that's my words of encouragement. When you figure out your purpose, you're unstoppable. And that's it. Post traumatic growth, man. I wouldn't change a damn thing. So
Yeah, I like how you said rejection is God's protection, and like how you I think you talked about it. I'll put the episode where he gets into the details of his story and the resilience, I mean, that you showed despite like all this the signs, if you will, or the roadblocks that you had and still overcame. And like to hear that you're now retiring, starting to live out your dream or your vision of what you had for yourself, and then all the sacrifices you had to do to get to this point. Definitely well deserved, man, and over deserved. And I understand. I mean, granted, we had different paths, but I understand. Like, yes, I don't. I mean, I really don't. One, because people don't understand what I did. Like I try to explain it, but my retirement, love me box or whatever that I got for my retirement, it's been in the closet since I retired. Um my retirement I didn't want to have. I had it for, like everyone was telling me, you gotta do it for your family. And
yeah.
I'm glad because they appreciated it. Granted, not the same stuff you did. But at the same time
Did
it
what
was
you
cool.
tell other people not to do.
What's that?
Said you just did what you told other people not to
Fuck. Yeah, it's hard.
calling you out.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I need to be called out. I know somebody called me out the other day too, and I like that. That's why I love you, man. Um, because we need that.
Accountability.
We need to be checked, man. Like the other day, I was like, I'm supposed to go fishing this weekend. That's what I was telling somebody. They're like, supposed to, and I was like, I'm going fishing. He's like, oh, okay, that sounds more like it. But yeah, I was supposed to go like to Sharkathon this weekend or something with my brother. Uh, I've never been. I don't know. I'm gonna go out there. I like fishing, surf fishing. But either way, my point is, yeah, like I hope you do that, man. And if I can make it, I'd definitely love to go. If go and just I don't know, just kind of be there, man. Like, you're a good dude. I appreciate you, and everything you've done for this country and everything you continue to do. More specifically for like our fellow human, right? And like to share and be vulnerable, right? When in a place where, I mean, it's being more common now, but uh you do it genuinely. And
Mhm.
I I think you know where I'm going with that. That's all I say about that. But I love how you just put everything so succinct and you just make it so relatable. And I'm glad, and I think that the same thing for me. My and I struggle to say this because like I do. You're probably gonna call me out again, but yeah, my childhood was like definitely chaotic, and I do feel like that was the brunt of my issues. I was doing a lot of crazy shit before I joined the military and early on in my military. I literally had to stay home and I stopped going out because I was fighting too much. Like, and I wasn't starting to fight. It was just my face. I don't know. People wanted to fight my face. I don't know why. It's
My
my RBF,
brother.
man. Yeah, but
Yeah.
either way, my point is, I appreciate the hell out of you, man. I appreciate you sharing everything you shared. And um, it it's awesome and refreshing to kind of just chat with you and just kind of uh I don't know, like I don't want to say see myself, but just like kind of hear the similarities. And it's not just with you, it's other people too that just kind of get it and they're on the other side of it, right? And I'm not saying that this life is not going to throw some more challenging things, right?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
They still come at you. They're still coming
oh,
at me.
dude, and they'll probably come harder, right? Because it's like, oh, you got this now. Okay, just wait. You're gonna have something that's gonna fucking knock you on your ass again.
Yeah. Life
But
doesn't get easier, you get stronger.
yeah, exactly, right. But I think that's all for it, and I'm glad you brought up the purpose, right? That's what I hope for everyone, that anybody that listens to this podcast or just with this chatting with me. One thing I pray for and I hope for people is you find the purpose that like that you're here for, that God put for you to fulfill, and the thing you do the best is probably that thing, right? I'm not talking about drinking. I used to do pretty good, but that like led me a lot of not so good paths. But with that, it's like whether you're like people tell you stuff, right? If they just start sharing their information with you, or like not sharing their information, but like sharing their story with you, then there's something about you that you put people at ease. Or if you make people laugh, or if you are a good cook, like, or you know what I mean. There's these number of things that you people just do, and they enjoy to do, and if they can fulfill that purpose and do it with the right intent and the right energy, uh, man, you could. It's not about, and that's one thing I had to learn, and you can probably relate to this, that when I first learned all this information and I got out of the hospital and like I'm trying to go around and share this information, hey, look at this, or listen to this or whatever, right? It's kind of like religion, right? You're like too much with it. And I'm not talking about like
They're the
just religion.
apostle.
Yeah, you're just like just trying to like force it down people's throats, right? That's what I mean it from like this self-righteous standpoint. And I'm not saying that's where I was, but if people aren't ready, you have to recognize it. And fast forward, it's like, how do we change the world, right? It's like Gandhi, right? It's be the change. I think he said that. Um, but it's like literally making the changes yourself. And when people are ready, they will come to you for information. But if you're not walking the path and doing the work, then it's gonna come off disingenuine. And it's just like the way you change is anything, and if is just to change yourself. And it's not easy. As Geoff alluded to earlier, it's not easy at all. But it's like literally having people, the allowing people the freedom to check you, and you'd be like, you know what, dude, thank you, as opposed to getting butt hurt and you'd be like, hey man, like why'd you tell me that or whatever. No, it's like, you know what, man, I appreciate you. I mean, granted, you got to deal with the right type of tact. If you're just kind of just calling people out just to be an asshole, then that's gonna be received well. But if it's just like, hey man, I care about you, man, I say this with love, like, you probably should work on this, or like, why'd you take it this, or hey man, are we good? And just be like, oh yeah, sorry man, and just being humble and accepting that feedback, right? Um,
Accountability.
Accountability, man. And yeah, so Jeff, you're one of those people. Jonathan's another person, and we I'm starting to find more of those people, and I appreciate them more, um, because I kind of alluded to this earlier, like spiritual warfare. But I don't know if I said that. Maybe we talked about that on another subject.
We talked about that on the phone.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a whole man. There is
Save that for another episode.
yeah. Let's just say that for another episode. It's gonna turn into an all nighter, but we'll just tease that, and then we'll talk more, and then we can But yeah, that's a whole thing with social media and movies and all these things, right? Like this thing. You see, here I go. I'm just gonna shut up. But dude, I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you being vulnerable and just as a matter of factly sharing what you share. I appreciate what you did for this country, like I said earlier. And you deserve all the great things, man, that is owed to you, that you deserve, that you earned, I should say.
Um,
Um, and I appreciate you coming to the podcast. And do you have anything for me?
no, man, always a pleasure, brother. I love
Like
talking to you. So we'll do it
likewise.
again. Hopefully, we can get back out on the mountain.
Yeah, dude. I want to start doing these kind of remotely. I got some lapel mics and stuff, and just kind of do it out on the trail somewhere or something, or maybe after a ride or something. Maybe I go visit you over there, vice versa. But yeah, dude. I appreciate you. Hey, if anyone has got something from this podcast, or do you feel that somebody will benefit from it? Like, share it with them. Please like and subscribe if it's on YouTube, or it's on Spotify, Pandora. These are everywhere you can get podcasts, Crash Combos. Appreciate y'all's patience and the long wait. As Geoff knows, we're doing a lot of things at once, and I'm trying to be more consistent with it. I'm off the road right now, so I appreciate y'all's time, appreciate y'all's energy, and yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, Geoff. I appreciate you, and
Yeah,
yeah,
brother.
dude, call me anytime, dude.
Hell yeah. All right, bro. That was good.